Welcome to Jay's Cafe, where today we have soup and monitors. If you can't tell by the birds here, obviously today we are at the Viewsonic headquarters. It's actually our first time here. We're going to be taking a look at some cool stuff, but more importantly, as you've kind of seen in the title of this video, we'll be ending with a 138-inch direct view LED panel that is not meant for gaming, but that's exactly what we're going to do with it today. But first, let's kind of take a quick tour around their showroom, because there's a lot of panel tech that Viewsonic's been involved in since going back to the 1980s. Actually, one of my biggest CRTs I ever owned was a 20-inch Viewsonic panel back in 1996. As my kid would say, way back in the 90s. But anyway, all right, so let's go ahead and kind of take a quick tour. Okay, so let's talk about gaming panels for a second here. When you think Viewsonic, you might, at least my audience, probably thinks of like the Viewsonic Elite or any of the OLED panels or the super high refresh rates. In fact, Viewsonic was one of the first companies to ever have high refresh rate panels, especially breaking into the 240s or now the over 300 hertz panels when it comes to esports gaming. One of the first companies to ever kind of come up with this design of the base. That way esports gamers can get their keyboard in that super cool gaming position, right? I can't game that way, but you know, esports gamers do this. So every little thing that you see in a Viewsonic panel has actually got a purpose and a reason behind it. You know, if we're talking about high refresh rate, IPS panels, obviously color accuracy, connectivity, Thunderbolt panels. In fact, what we got up here are actually some external panels right here. And Phil, by the way, they're going to be giving us an OLED external panel for us to start using for mobile editing, which is nice, and calibrated, because I said calibration would be great. We actually have this panel right here, and this is the 34-inch curved, that's the XG341C-2K. I love curved panels and ultra wide. I'm a sucker for 21:9. But the point is, Viewsonic really wanted it to be known that like they do more than just gaming panels. So one of their huge markets for them, and when it comes to their clientele, it's not gaming, it's actually more like enterprise, commercial, or in this instance, we're gonna be talking about very large formats. So when you talk about large format, one of the first things you would kind of think of in this room with the lights on right now, it's not gonna be great for projectors, but projectors. In fact, we talked about one of the Viewsonic Xbox collaboration projectors, which for us was not a bad experience, but projectors leave a lot to be desired when it comes to gamers. Not only that, the ambient lighting, whether you have windows or lights on in your space, definitely affects the contrast ratio of a projector, even a laser projector. They're only capable of so much when it comes to dealing with ambient lighting. Not only that, you can't really move them too easily. Once they're set up, mounted in a ceiling or on a stand, once you have your display, in this instance it's just the wall, but if you have your projector screen set up, it's not very mobile or easy to move. So that's why going with large format, in this instance, we're going to be taking a look at a tile design direct view LED. And what does direct view mean? Well, we'll talk about that in a second, but basically think of it as you are looking at the individual LEDs when it comes to creating that pixel array, or that panel array. And it's scalable, which by being a tile design, think of like CPUs, how we're on chiplet/tile design for CPUs now. They're doing that for panels. But before that, let's take another quick tour and a little walk around of some of the other panels that they have that are non-gaming before we go into the commercial side, where we're gonna push gaming through it to see how it can actually handle it. For instance, if this one looks familiar, this is actually the 5K panel that Phil did an excellent review of, in my opinion, by the way, which obviously isn't meant for gaming. This is meant for like content creation, for professional workflow of photo editing, video editing, etc. Over here, we have a more kind of a no frills, if you will, 38-inch WQHD. They call it their Color Pro. This would be perfect for an office space or somebody that just needs more screen real estate, like general office setting. Or over here, this guy right here, this is the VX4381-4K. It's got 4 independent inputs on it. So it can be a single panel with a single input that goes up to 4K, or if you start utilizing individual inputs, you can have 4 individual 1080p displays happening at the same time. Obviously it is bezel-less, but this has a ton of different types of use cases. You can use them for security camera monitoring. Obviously if you're going to be monitoring different inputs. This is something I would have loved to have had back when I worked in IT, because of the fact that you could have several systems hooked up to this, whether you're talking about monitoring VMs or a data center or any other system or multiple systems at once with a single panel. So rather than having to deal with some sort of a like a VM switch or an input switch, you'd be able to monitor them real time at the same time. And then you would just have to have a switch, obviously, for your input, mouse, and keyboard. But this is a perfect kind of a very flexible display, not bendable, but flexible display to use in multiple types of environments at once. And then coming over here, these are just some panels that they have that you can purchase if you already have a monitor arm, so there's no base, just kind of helping cut down some of the cost. This is another ultra-wide panel right here that has a built-in microphone. Obviously here we have a webcam on top that kind of has its own key lighting on here, so that if you're doing Microsoft Teams or video conferencing, Zoom calls, a lot for work, it's really handy because of the fact that it's really sort of built around conferencing, but it's not obviously a large scale conference panel. It's perfect for your desk, but it has a mute switch right here for the built-in microphone. That way, instead of having to, if you have to quickly mute your monitor or your mic, you don't have to fumble around with Zoom or Teams and find where that mute button is. You can do it right here on the panel. But we already teased the 138-inch DirectView LED, so let's go look at that. So what I'm standing in front of right now is not the 138-inch DV-LED. This is actually just an example of a large format screen you might see in, a business lobby or a hotel lobby or, an office center, whatever. Potentially a conference room or even classrooms and college environments and lecture rooms or lecture halls. These are available in different sizes. Some are direct input, or meaning that you can touch their touch screen and you can interact with it. It's an interactive screen. Obviously this one here is turned portrait mode right here. Example is like a sign wall or maybe a schedule. It doesn't matter. The use cases are kind of endless when it comes to ways that you can use these big panels. But we've all seen environments like Tokyo, downtown New York or Times Square, where basically you have entire buildings where the side of the building has been turned into the largest panel or advertising board as you could possibly imagine. So what happens when you take something like that and scale it down to 138 inches? We get this. This is DirectView LED. So I'm standing here with Shane, who's the project manager or product manager. Yeah, you're the product manager for this particular panel and other things. We kind of talked a little bit off camera about the use cases for this. So, like, have you ever been to a stadium and you've seen the giant jumbotron, or you've been to, like, I don't know, a hockey game or a basketball game? This is kind of a smaller version of that, right? What is the vision for this?
What you see in stadiums, would imagine it shrunk down for spaces like this. We're in a multi-purpose room here or a classroom. Really anywhere where you would like to have a really large image like this, except you can move it around, you can have it in different places.
Like, check this out. It is foldable. And no, the panel itself is not folding, it's just there's a natural break right here because this is a tiled design, like I said. So if I fold this kind of all away, you'll see it's made up of an array of smaller panels. And each of these have an LED that is directly visible to you, so it's not shining through, like you said, a liquid crystal display or any sort of diffuser in any way. It is just a direct visible LED. Now, you said this is a 1080p.
Correct.
Now, what's surprising to me about that is I figured at the format and the size that this is that you would naturally want to go to 4K, but we're cost limited. In this scale, it's just exponentially more expensive to go with that level of pixel density, right?
It is possible to do it, but you're exactly right. It really depends on what the cost is, what the application is. This actually, I think, looks really good at 1080p, but you can definitely go to 4K, but keep in mind there's going to be 4 times the number of pixels or 4 times the number of LEDs that are going to need to be in here to make that happen.
And obviously we're standing 4 feet from it. That's not exactly the distance it's intended to be viewed, but this is kind of like your Viewsonic's vision of what they call a TV wall or a display wall would be. So the use cases for this, like you said, could be lobbies of sports centers, hotels, commercial centers, malls, right? And then this can be scaled up to how big?
I mean, think of even like almost like a movie theater size, so it's very scalable. That's the benefit of having like the cabinets with the tiles, is you can keep stacking them on top of each other and get it as big or small as you would like.
Now, in terms of portability, although this is their portable version, it's got a stand right here, it's got a built-in sound bar, all the electronics that actually run it, and all the wired pairs and everything that connects all the panels together is down here in what looks like the sound bar. But it is a motorized stand, so it's got an adjustable height that that comes all the way down basically to the base right here, so it could fit through a standard size door. I'm not sure how high it goes, but you were saying the panel alone and this whole setup is about 500 pounds, and then it travels in its own flight case, which adds about another 500 pounds. So it's 1,000 pounds worth of portability. But you don't have to buy it in this configuration. It can be wall mounted.
Correct, and I would say actually the majority of these are going to be permanently installed on the wall. And that's where you can get really, really large because now you're not worried about balancing and things.
Now, is this the smallest version of it, the 138?
This is going to be the smallest version, yep.
Have you guys built one bigger than 138 yet?
Not for the portable we haven't, but for the on-wall, yes. For the on-wall we've gotten, I'm not sure the exact size, but it literally looked like a movie theater screen.
And movie theaters are typically about 40 feet.
Yeah, now we're starting to talk in feet instead of inches because it's that large.
One of the things that we were talking about is because of the way that this is tiled, if you get a dead pixel or you get something that's quite kind of not right, it can be removed and modularly replaced.
Exactly.
And all of these are calibrated to each other. Correct. So that's why you're not seeing like any sort of I don't know, let's say temperature difference or color difference between them because they're put together in a calibrated fashion. So it's kind of neat to see, and I mentioned this off camera, I feel like this I still would love to see what the 4K one would look like, but if you're sitting far enough back, this is an awesome projector replacement in a residential type of environment. Now, the cost on this is significantly higher than what a projector can give you for the same scale, but this doesn't have the drawbacks of, like we talked about in the other room, having to deal with ambient light, or you have to turn off all of the room lights or dim them to a certain level, or your contrast ratios get blown out. You know, this gives you, I think, more use cases than just commercial, but sometimes things that start in this very expensive, very cutting edge commercial environment eventually scale down into residential. Has there been any internal discussion with Viewsonic about a residential version of something like this?
The mobile one? Not yet, just because like you said, it's from a cost standpoint, it'd be really tough to justify that. But we've certainly seen our on-wall ones in those residential settings as a projector replacement. So in like a home theater type environment, putting those direct view, because you also don't have to worry about replacing the lamps. You don't have to worry about, like you said, the light and things like that. So,
but I think this is cool because it kind of shows the way technology moves. And I feel like we've sort of gone full circle where everybody started looking at, laser projectors, and that's how we get scaled. And it's like, well, now the technology's gotten reliable enough and small enough to where now we can go back to LED technology, and here it is now being what's really kind of sought after in these commercial environments. Like in the other room, I kind of mentioned this is the kind of thing you would expect to see in like Times Square, right?
Yeah, this is what you're seeing in Times Square, just much, much larger with wider pixel pitches and things like that. I was going to say
the pixel pitch is obviously much bigger there because you can see the pixels from the ground, like the pitch. But you were saying this is about a 1.5 millimeter pixel pitch?
This is 1.5 millimeter, yep.
And that's obviously because it's 1080p and 138 inches, you're going to have gaps in the pixels that are visible. But who knows, maybe in 10 years, 4K will have become affordable to the point where it's in the same price point.
It will happen. Just in the past couple of years, the affordability of this type of setup, direct view LED, has come down considerably. Not only the cost, but the power consumption has come down considerably. A lot of things have been a little more simplified than in the past. So yeah, I expect in 10 years, this will be much more prolific, even in residential, than what we're seeing today.
Now, some of the challenges of mounting this on a wall is, believe it or not, sheetrock walls. And here in the United States, most home construction, especially on the West Coast, is foundation, wood frame, and stucco, and sheetrock. You're never going to get those walls perfectly flat. So there's quite a bit of adjustment that has to be done when you wall mount it, because if there's any sort of variance in that wall, peaks and valleys, it's going to show up on the array. Right, because you'll start to see these gaps between them.
Yeah, that's where the direct view kind of becomes, that's where the science, instead of the keystoning and things like that on projectors and throw distance and whatnot, it's going to come into that on how to properly mount it on the wall, whether you're shimming the wall or you can do things like 2x4s, unistrut, things like that to get it nice and flat. And it's going to be one of those things where the more preparation you do before you install, it's going to pay dividends for when you actually put the wall on. And
have you seen people build frames with maybe metal backing that are perfectly flat to put this on rather than sheetrock?
Yes. Yeah, that's actually very common, right? Trusses and things like that they're going to put behind there to keep it flat, because if you're doing it directly on the wall, sometimes it's not going to be flat and they're going to have those issues. Yep.
Now, one thing this is also, obviously this is on a wall, it's gotta be durable. Not just because of the fact that it's exposed, but it's exposed to people potentially. I'll let you demonstrate it, Shane. I don't wanna accidentally find its limits, but it does have impact resistance.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another big improvement that's happened in direct view LED over the years, is they've gotten a lot more reliable. So in this case, there's something called glue on board, which is a silicone coating that's put over the LEDs. Because like we mentioned, you're looking directly at the LEDs. So instead of being exposed though, they have this coating and they're actually impact resistant, where we can go up and it can take some pretty decent hits.
If this is sitting on the wall, you know, let's say it's in a mall, right? Kids are gonna walk up to it and wow, and the LEDs can start coming off.
Yep, absolutely. Kids, full-grown adults, it doesn't matter. Yeah. People see this and immediately they want to touch it. So having that durability is going to definitely increase the lifespan of these, especially in public.
And the other thing I want to mention too before we move on to gaming is you don't feel any radiant heat coming off of this. If you put your hand on it, you can feel it's warmer than the room by maybe single-digit degrees, but it's not like, I think of OLEDs. I've got a lot of like OLEDs in my home, and the moment they're on, if you get near them, you feel the heat just radiate from that. It reminds me of kind of like the old, the plasma TVs and the amount of heat that plasma gave off. It reminded me, like OLEDs remind me of that, but there's just really no heat, and that's because of the efficiency of LEDs.
Exactly, and this wasn't always the case either. Just a couple of years ago, you could feel the heat, but direct views become a lot more energy efficient over the years. We were talking off camera about this connects to like a 20 amp circuit, for instance, but in the previous generations, it was actually 30. So as it comes down, it becomes a lot more energy efficient. And there's even newer technologies than this that are coming around, like chip on board, that are even more energy efficient. So you can do things like 4K in this size, but it's still gonna be 20 amp.
It doesn't have like Netflix or anything like that built in, because really it's not a consumer product. It is a commercial product that we are gonna be using right now, well outside of what it was meant to do. But of course, we can't have access to something like this and not, try to game. I would try and game on the Jumbotron if I had access to it, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat. I don't think there was anything else to really talk about with this other than the fact that I was going to mention the power need of that. It's not HDR, it's 600 nits, right? You said 600? Nits, yeah. Adjustable in 10% increments from 0 to 10. This is designed to be an advertising product. Yeah. But we're going to now use it to play some games. I figured in terms of being pretty, we should start with, that was bright. Avatar. Feels like I'm really in Pandora. It might only be 600 nit, but each one of these LEDs is 600 nit. So when a white screen happens, it's literally like you're getting flashbanged. $100. It's bigger than me in real life.
I'm gonna see if I can creatively.
It's just scary. That's weird. See, when you watch something like this, like you don't spend much time going, oh yeah, the pixel pitch is really big, but it's really loud actually. The built-in like soundbar thing is very loud. You really don't consider the fact that it's a 1080p panel at 138 inches. That's what's kind of shocking to me. This looks so stupid, hold on. Like the way they did Superman in the old movies.
Oh yeah.
Or like they did The Mandalorian or whatever, right? So Superman flying. How do I go to in-car cam? Jeez, the steering, okay. Yeah. It's like VR without the V. I feel like I'm at an arcade. Because sometimes the arcade games, they've hooked up to a big screen. Like I feel like I'm at an arcade. Oh, this is very disorienting at this size. Oh God. He got ran over by his own, oh, he's stuck to the car. Uh-oh. Oh! I've never played Cyberpunk in this scale. All right, well, that was bigger than I expected it to be in terms of the gaming experience. Anyway, so we're gonna go and wrap this up, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us today as we kind of take a look at some of the offerings from Viewsonic, but more importantly, we had talked about doing this earlier this year and the idea of bringing it to our studio, but even though it is ultra portable for a billboard, to be honest. It was probably better that we came here to look at it because the transporting of this would have required a liftgate and a freight truck. So anyway, it's kind of fun to take stuff like this that's out of context and use it in ways that it was never meant to be used, because that's just kind of what we like to do. But I mean, you absolutely can game on it, although it is the world's most expensive gaming panel at that point. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Again, this was just kind of a fun technology showcase, if you will. And now when you guys are walking around looking at billboards, I bet you're gonna look at things like pixel pitch and how far apart are those pixels and how big is that board. I wonder if that's a Viewsonic. Because here's the crazy thing. This is the smallest format it comes in. You can scale it bigger and you can tile the entire thing with other versions of the entire thing. So you can take 4 of these and put them together and effectively make a 4K sort of. All right, guys. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we came into this. Thanks for watching. As always, we'll see you in the next one.